Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining this webinar on Hypercharge Your Industry 4.0 transformation with video AI and edge computing technologies. So, how's everyone doing today? I hope everyone's having a great day so far. All right. I am Sarah from Tapway, and I will be your MC for today's webinar. For today's agenda, we will have a presentation by Tapway and then followed by a presentation by AWS. And we will also be having a question and answer sessions by the end of the webinar. We will be talking about how you can run your floor efficiently, solving problems before they even arise, and continuously improving production. So make sure to stay throughout the whole webinar as it will surely bring benefit to all of you. So before I introduce you to our two speakers, I would like to cover a few housekeeping topics. Feel free to drop your questions at the chat box anytime during the presentations, as the questions will be brought up later during the question and answer sessions. And other than that, today's webinar is being recorded and we will be posting this on YouTube channel. So we will provide you with both the link of access to the video and presentation slides after the webinar. And of course, we welcome you to revisit the content anytime needed and share it with your colleague. Now, I would like to hand the floor over to our first presenter, Chi Hao, the CEO and founder of Tapway. He is responsible for every strategic planning and execution, partnerships, investor relations, and the overall management of Tapway. Not to forget, he also leads the company's technical roadmap planning and execution. So prior to establishing Tapway, he had spent more than 4 years with Airbus Group on their helicopter division across Europe and Asia. Now I welcome you, Chi Hao, to present his presentation.
Thanks a lot, Sarah. Hi, everyone. My name is Chi Hao, and I'm the founder and CEO of Tapway. And first of all, I would just like to thank FMM for organizing this session. And I would like to thank Vasily from AWS, who will be presenting after me. I would like to just introduce a little bit about the company, our company Tapway. It's all about making physical locations smarter. What does that mean? Really, our core business is about leveraging video AI or video artificial intelligence technology, as well as connected sensors, either through a Wi-Fi sensor or BLE sensor or any other sort of tapping into machines to capture data in physical locations. And why do we want to do that? What does that help? How does that help businesses, right? In 3 different aspects. Number 1 is really to help streamline and automate operations. Number 2 is to help improve staff experience or customer experience, and most importantly is really to enhance safety and ensure security. And throughout, we started actually our business in 2014, and so it's been about 7 years plus in the business, and we have now deployed more than 2,000 sensors and cameras across 3 countries in Southeast Asia, with about 500 different locations. Next. So yeah, Tapway core competencies have always been about video AI. So that's front and center, as you can see. And we are complemented by 2 different areas. Number 1 is IoT. Of course, we have been having a lot of experience tapping into different sort of sensors and tapping into different kinds of machines. And finally, with AWS, with us today, we are also we have been building on the cloud for the longest time, and we know how to process huge amounts of data, real-time data coming from various different sources, be it camera or different kinds of sensors. And our vision has always been to be the region, and there's a lot of opportunities and pain points in the Southeast Asian region, and we would like to be the top vision and IoT tracking solution provider with any business that has a physical premise. Next. So I'll just give you an overview about the solutions that we have. So as you can see, yeah, we have a line of solutions, and they are all pretty self-explanatory. On the left, you have what we call People Track, and under People Track, we have a couple of sub products, right? So Vision is all about how do we use camera to track people. For example, people counting, and also tracking, like let's say, how people move around, how long they stay in the zone to do queue tracking. And then behavior and location, it's mostly about tracking people's location through either a Wi-Fi device like your phone, or through providing a BLE tag, a Bluetooth tag to the person. So by being able to track the movement of, let's say, stuff in the factory setting, that will be applicable to manufacturers today. Vision Track is a platform that we developed just for manufacturers due to the demand of the visual inspection problems being that in this stage right now, a lot of quality inspection is still done by human inspectors and by traditional methods, and not leveraging technologies like AI and also robotics. So this is a platform to address that issue. And in terms of asset track, this is where we have a platform called Connector Factory to tap into different kinds of machines in your factory to get real-time data and to provide you with real-time report that will help you to improve your business. Inventory is literally what it means to track, let's say, your parcels and your product inventory from start to the end. Vehicle track and face track is as self-explanatory as it is. Basically, it's all about tracking vehicle license plate and also classification of the vehicle. And for face, it's basically to recognize faces, very important for, let's say, access control purpose or for attendance management purpose. Next. So maybe just to take a step back and give you an overview. I'm sure a lot of you here who are in this industry or who are in manufacturing will already know about all this, right? So what is Internet of Things and what is AI? So to start off about IoT, some people refer it these days to Internet of Everything, because really essentially everything is connected to the internet, right? So you can see a couple of examples on the top, right? Be it, your laptop definitely is connected. These days we have smart mobility where cars are connected and you can upgrade firmware over the air, just like your smartphone, right? And of course, in the context of manufacturing, you have things like machinery, so either a robotic arm or your conveying system, and many other machines basically. And of course, smart lighting that is connected to the cloud, and you can track energy usage. And of course, even down to your home, right? You can even have your fridge connected for some reason. So yeah, everything is really connected to the internet right now, and that's really what IoT is. But IoT is nothing unless you can analyze the data and apply certain intelligence on it, and that's where AI comes in, right? So AI is really a really big branch, and under AI, there's a few smaller branches. Of course, in Tapway, we are very focused on two areas, which is a neural network, or we call it deep learning, and computer vision, which basically is how we analyze video feed and pixels on images, essentially. So there's also other things like the most basic, which is machine learning, where basically if you guys are into statistics, there are quite a couple of different ways that you can apply different models to solve problems, which I'll explain later. And natural language processing is really how you are able to analyze text in various forms, basically. Next. All right, so how does IoT really work? It's pretty straightforward, really. If you already have a device that you can capture data, so you will connect to it and capture data from there. If, let's say, in any case, your machine is 30 years old and you have no means to collect data from it, then you will need to create, which means by adding sensors on it and things like that. And once you are able to capture data, the next thing is how do you then send it, right? Where do you send it to? So that's where communication is, or where networking is, right? You need to be able to send this data to the cloud, for example. And in this case, once it reaches the cloud, you need to aggregate the data, store the data, process the data, and after that, you will be able to analyze it. So that is the next phase. But analyzing it is not enough unless you act on it, right? So act is the most important of all, because you need to act on the data or act on the insights that you have collected from the data, right? So it's basically from data to insights to basically improving on insights. So that is basically how the whole IoT process works in the nutshell. Next. So why now, right? I think that's a very, very important question. Why people have been hyping about IR 4.0 and Industry 4.0 for the longest time, but why is it now? Right? There are various trends that go with it and that can really support the deployment for IR 4.0. And really, number one is connectivity, with 4G being so mature and stable, with 5G upcoming, with various low power WAN, or we call it LP WAN technologies that are emerging. It is really easy and low cost to connect devices to the cloud. And of course, sensors are getting cheaper than ever. You'll be able to purchase a smart switch for your home for perhaps less than 30 ringgit these days. And that is a far cry from perhaps 5 years ago. And that's really the extent of how things are getting scale, and IoT is getting scale right now. And apart from that, of course, computing and storage and bandwidth, right? So we talk about connectivity, which is bandwidth, but storage and computing, which really powers and gets all these companies like AWS to the top of the game, is really because computing has become so cheap, storage has become so cheap that it is really time to go to the cloud without paying for maintenance of your data center, without having so much manual manpower and heavy lifting done on your side. And finally, the last trend that is going with the whole flow is edge computing, right? I'm sure a lot of the factory and your factories could be located remotely, where connectivity can still be an issue. So how do you make sure that a cloud solution can still work when connectivity is bad? That's where edge computing comes in. So edge computing is where you can have a lot of processing done at the edge, but still be connected to the cloud. So if you have downtime of 8 hours, you'll still be we call that buffering or storing data at the edge before sending it to the cloud. It will avoid losses of data in bad bandwidth situation. Next. So yeah, let's maybe zoom in now to what challenges that the industry is facing, right? I think there are a couple of challenges right now, especially in this pandemic, in the COVID times. Of course, number one is how do you reduce your labor, right? Because you don't want to have so much manual manpower. And even Malaysian government mandates for foreign labor to be reduced to 20% by the end of 2022. So that will be a huge challenge for many of you who are still employing maybe low-skilled labor, and some of them are foreign. And number two, if you look at the bottom right, is also a Malaysian plan, a 5-year plan, and the target is for number of high-skilled workers to be increased from 35% to 35% from 18%, right? And in order to move people, your workers to high skill, you need to reduce their low skill work, basically, or their repetitive work. And of course, productivity is key as well. And how do you achieve more productivity per person is really to look at the top right. And I think this is a chart that is familiar to many of you who are in the manufacturing industry. And that is really how can you boost your productivity by reducing or minimizing the losses, right? So today we'll talk a lot about this word called OEE, which is overall equipment efficiency. And that's really to improve in 3 areas. Number one is availability loss. Number two is a performance loss. And number 3 is quality loss. So yeah, we'll talk more about that in the next slide. So yeah, I'll give you an overview of what sort of connected factory solutions that you can implement right now. Of course, this is not comprehensive. This is basically things that we have been working on and we have been deploying for customers. But of course, there are various parts that make up, IR 4.0. So we are not discounting that. On the top right, of course, you have basically staff location tracking. And that's what I've mentioned just now, which is a solution for you to really not just to do contact tracing. By the way, it's great for contact tracing if you are looking to implement anything to trace employees who are tested positive and you don't know who they are in contact with. staff location tracking, or we call it people track location in a company, is the perfect solution for you. But apart from that, it's really to understand staff productivity. If they are assigned 8 hours at their station, are they spending 8 hours at their station? Or they are basically lingering around. So you would like to know staff productivity, worker efficiency, definitely. On the bottom, top right, again, all the way to the right, is basically machine data collection. So that's basically how you can connect to each of your machine. The challenge is really that you have so many different machines that you purchase over the years, and they are all of different brand and standard that are speaking totally different languages. How do you do that to standardize the language and to be able to collect data? That's the major challenge. Once you're able to solve that, you're able to then monitor each of your industrial asset, either a machine or, again, a conveying system or anything at all. Yeah. So at the bottom, of course, you want to automate more of your QC, which I've mentioned. And that is really by implementing what we call vision track, and to be able to use cameras to replace human eyes to do inspection on your whether there's any defect on your part, and to automate the entire QC process, and to have a real-time dashboard for your QC personnel to inspect when defect rates goes up or down, basically. And the last part is, of course, inventory tracking, and you have a lot of inventory and you would like to avoid inventory losses. So that makes inventory tracking a lot more important in this current context where volume is high and speed is really fast. Next. All right, so yeah, I'll just present some statistics, but I'm sure you already know about that. Production volume with IoT, industrial IoT, it can go up by 20%. And productivity, of course, with all these solutions can go up to 25%. And finally, majority of manufacturers who have implemented these solutions find it extremely effective. So I hope you will too. Next. So I'll deep dive into two solutions. One of them, as I mentioned, Connected Factory. And really this platform helps not just to tap into your machines to collect data, but helps you to make better, smarter, data-driven decisions. And with data, you are able to get insights and improve efficiency of your operation, basically. Next. All right, so how it works is pretty straightforward. So let's say if you have 2 plants or 2 factories, you may have just one, and that's fine too. We will put basically what we call an IoT gateway. Again, this is an edge computing device. And what we'll do is we'll connect to each of these machines via a wide range of protocols. Of course, if you're in the industry, we use the OPC standard. And we also have support up to more than 150 proprietary drivers as well. That can connect to the likes of Siemens and Omron and other brands. And once this data is collected at the edge, it will be pushed to the cloud. And basically, once the data is in the cloud, you'll be able to collect, organize, and process data. And later, we will show a demo about that. And once you have the dashboard, you'll be able to track things like, again, your OEE, your overall equipment efficiency metrics, and other metrics that are relevant to your machine operation and to your production. And at the bottom, which is very important, is to be reactive. And I'll explain more about that as well later. Once you are able to detect certain abnormal behavior, to get that real-time alert instead of waiting for another 15 minutes for more tragic events to happen, you can prevent that by reacting quickly. Next. So the methodology is pretty straightforward, and it's really a cycle, right? Because things are not going to be done on the first day that you implement this solution. It will be an iterative process. The first thing is really to gather your data, which is as simple as connecting to your machines to get real-time data. And the important point here is real-time, right? And if you're able to collect real-time data, that will be all. But if you can't, like I say, you can introduce secondary sensors and also to enrich other data coming from other sources like your MES or your ERP. Once it's coming to the cloud, then you are able to then analyze the data. So it's good that I'm sure you guys will have your operational KPIs, and you are able to run now things like the 6 big losses analysis, which is very common in the industry, to find out where are your biggest losses and how do you reduce it. So once you're able to do that, you can come up with a plan to optimize the processes. and to drive incremental improvement, fix the root causes, and then in the end to automate the entire process. So if you're able to really automate the process, then you are really truly have achieved Industry 4.0. Next. So the features are pretty straightforward, as I mentioned. Real-time machine data collection, you are able to access, because of the nature of cloud, you'll be able to access your dashboard from anywhere. So it doesn't have to be confined to your factory, and it's extremely effective in this time where you're working remotely. And of course, to boost your production output by reducing the 6-peak losses. So be really, really data-driven and focus on those losses and how to trim it. Next. Yeah, and I would like to talk a bit about predictive maintenance as well. Of course, I think what I mentioned just now about alerts, in the level 1, you basically will fix when broken, right? So when you receive a report, hey, this machine has gone down, then you react to it. Level 2 is when you say, hey, you know what? Based on maybe our initial finding, we should probably schedule every month to look at this and to do some standard maintenance, right? And that's basically level 2. And it will help you to boost your OE a bit, but not so much, right? And then when you go to proactive is looking at the real-time data to really tell you that perhaps we need to not do it every month, but you need to do it every week because this machine breaks down a lot more often. So that's being proactive. And lastly, predictive, which is the final milestone of achieving predictive maintenance, is to be able to use data to tell you before a machine goes down. Yeah, so that's predictive maintenance. Next. So the deliverables, really, by introducing this solution, these are, of course, data that is collected from the industry. It depends on what sector you are and your circumstance. It could be different numbers, but you'll be assured to have definitely reduced downtime. You will have a reduction in defect rate. You will have definitely better cycle time improvement, and you'll be able to improve your overall equipment efficiency. And even if you are able to track energy usage of your machine and your utility infrastructure, you will have reduction in energy use. So it's not just, it's really minimizing cost while maximizing output. Next. All right, so I'll talk a little bit about another solution, which I mentioned just now. So yeah, VisionTrack is the end-to-end visual inspection platform really designed for the QC or the QA department to automate their QC process, right? So every product has their own defects, and it's not something that you can buy a camera and basically detect these defects. It requires special AI models to be trained that can mimic how your human inspectors are currently doing your QC check. Next. So how it works is really by training the model. So again, how deep learning or neural network works is really by learning from examples, kind of like how a baby does it. So a baby will basically you show him or her 3 images of different bottles, and if you show another bottle that is of a bit of different shape and form, they will still recognize it as a bottle. And that's exactly how it works. So we capture images of all these parts. So if you have 10 defects, you can have like maybe 50 images or 20 images each of the defect. And then we will label this training image, and then we will train it in the cloud. Thanks to AWS, we are able to cut down the training time to a mere 30 minutes because of the distributed training nature. And we are able to then deploy this model back to the edge computing device and run it in real time. Next. So once we deploy it to the edge computing device, which we call an AI server, it will be able to read video feed coming from all the cameras. So the camera position must be precise so that it can capture information or image from all parts of your product. And we'll be able to detect a certain defect and to tell you to basically remove this device or remove this product out of your production line. So that's basically how it works. And how it compares to the traditional method. So there are 2 ways for those that have not implemented machine vision, basically using human, right? And of course, with the superhuman nature of cameras, which can process 30 frames per second, you're guaranteed to have faster inspection speed. And of course, it doesn't have human error. It doesn't get tired. So you have of course, higher consistency and better reliability, right? And compared to machine vision, so machine vision it's basically not using deep learning, but using certain recognition of pixels in the image, right? And it can't handle a lot of variations. It can't handle very complex situations where your crack can happen 1,000 different ways. So that's where deep learning really excels. And of course, you don't have to calibrate the camera really that much. So it basically makes for a much easier and faster setup. Next. So yeah, a feature, as I mentioned, complex, let's say cosmetic inspection, how you segment different products, and then texture and material, which is very interesting because material classification sometimes is not 0 or 1. It can be somewhere in between. So sometimes the line is not very clear whether it should be A or B, right? So that's where deep learning can come to solve that problem. Apart from that, OCR, which is reading text, it's also something that traditional methods can do, but there are some challenging use case. For example, if you have a round bottle, the text is flowing around and it has certain angle that is hard to be detected. That's where deep learning can come in and solve. Next. So yeah, the deliverables, again, same like Asset Track Connected Factory solution. Vision Track is really focused on quality inspection, and the goal is to help improve your quality inspection output and to reduce defects, and of course, to be able to automate some of your manpower away and reduce your QC workforce. Next. And yeah, I think this is my last slide, so I'll leave you with this before handing it over, back to Sarah. So there are certain government grants and financial aids available to really speed up and accelerate the Industry 4.0 adoption. So over here, there are two grants. Of course, some of you may have heard about it. MIDA has something called Smart Automation Grant, grant of up to 1 million, and it's a matching grant of 50-50. And this is where you can probably tap into, but it's highly limited because there's just so many applications out there. There's another one, which is called DISF. DISF is part of the Industry Forward branch of grants, and it stands for Domestic Investment Strategic Fund. It has a higher number in terms of the grant that it can provide, and but it has certain restrictions, of course, on like what industry and stuff like that, and it's really to help accelerate the shift of Malaysian manufacturers in targeted industries to a high value added and high technology industry, basically. So yeah, do reach out to us if you have any question on this, and if you need help with any applications. We have quite a bit of experience now dealing with this and can really assist you to help smoothen out your application process. So now I think that's all for my portion. I'll hand it back to Sarah. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Chihao, for the great presentation. It is really interesting how IoT can benefit the business in so many ways. So yeah, now without further ado, we will turn the time over to Vasily, the head of IoT business development in APJ region of AWS. So yeah, Vasily has been with AWS for 2 years. He is passionate about driving real impact with innovative cloud solutions that include IoT, advanced analytics, and AI. Currently, Vasily is involved in many connected products and smart factories projects across Asia. So prior to joining AWS, Vasily had gained significant IoT and cloud experience as a program manager, a business leader for cloud service. So yeah, please welcome Vasily.
Thank you, Sarah. Can you please give me a right to share my screen? Because hopefully I'm going to show you a quick demo. Perfect. All right. So hopefully you can see my screen. And yeah, so in my part of this presentation, I wanted to cover a couple of things. One, really give you a bit of understanding what services basically help to make those solutions possible, the ones that Chihao presented. Then I really actually want to show you a quick demo of the tools that you can get your hands on like straight away after this session. And the same tools are basically used by Tapway and Jihao to implement connected factory solutions. And then finally, actually, I do have a couple of customer case studies that I really like. So I wanted to share with you like what our customers were able to achieve with industrial IoT, with connected factory solutions, as well as my personal take on what's important when you step on this route. Okay, so first thing first, I know that the audience that we have today is quite mixed. So we have IT people, representatives of IT departments, IT roles, as well as some of the OT and manufacturing experts, which is always great. Um, so those who are familiar with IT, they probably heard about AWS, but still, I'm getting a lot of questions what AWS is. So probably everyone heard about Amazon, which is one of the largest retailers of the world, and definitely the largest online marketplace where you can buy anything. Amazon also produces things like Alexa and Echo devices that you can now buy and use in Malaysia, by the way. So Amazon is very famous with the way how it approaches innovation. So we have a so-called innovation culture that we are very proud of, and we actually strive to share with all our customers and partners. And like one particular part of it is around customer obsession. So we create the products that are driven by the customer need, and rather than create some products and then start looking for customers for it. So AWS is part of Amazon. So AWS was basically born out of complex IT operations of Amazon. So Amazon needed to support like massive website with a lot of different subsystems around managing supply chain and all distribution centers. And AWS initially was created to support the IT part of that operations, but at certain point we realized that our customers may benefit from services that AWS nurtured for Amazon, but we share a lot of cultural elements with Amazon. So same, scale, hyperspeed, innovation, customer obsession. Now we operate the largest number of data centers and service in the world. So we are present in more than 23 regions globally, and the number is growing. Now, one thing that I wanted to also share about Amazon is the way how we go to market. We basically bring AWS services, which are services that you can get access to through an online web console. Those services, we have more than 200 different services, and the number is growing, and they include things like compute, storage, networking, analytics, databases, IoT, even ground stations control, with the satellites. So to the left, you actually see a screenshot from a console that you can get access to straight away or after the session, and I hope that I'll actually demonstrate it to you. So, most of those sessions are services are available in a subscription mode. So you consume them the same way as you consume, I don't know, your utilities, water or electricity. And if you need them, you use them, and you only pay for what you actually used. If tomorrow you don't need something, you just switch it off, and no commitment, no kind of continuous payment will be required. Okay. Now, when you see that number of services, I guess you want to ask how you actually deploy the solutions. So the easiest way to think about the AWS is like Lego bricks, right? So and to build a solution like the one that Jiha was talking about, like you need to put together a lot of those Lego bricks and AWS services. And you can do it yourself. right, using the services that I'm going to show you today, or you can work with a partner like Tapway, who has a lot of experience of building together those, spaceships, vehicles, or solutions that our customers actually want. And they do have some really cool IP around computer vision that is, quite innovative, and I would say leads the pack in Southeast Asia for sure. So moving to more of a manufacturing solutions and manufacturing services. So there are lots of ways how you can get those AWS services together to implement some use case. And like we do actually have a special focus around several industries, and manufacturing is one of those industries. And we help our customers and partners put together solutions that respond to particular business needs. And so on this slide, I listed some of the top areas where we see cloud services, AWS services really help to drive digital transformation for our customers. So things like engineering, design, computer aided engineering, and semicon, electronic EDA, electronic design automation has been super hot. So companies now basically avoid doing that on premise. They use AWS services and host a lot of software packages there. Smart factory, which is something that we were talking about today in more details. So there are lots of different things and aspects and use cases we're discussing there. So Chihao mentioned a few. There are more. Right? Obviously, we would love to speak closer with our customers and understand where they are in the Industry 4.0 journey, and what sort of things we can help them to tackle. Supply chain, super popular topic right now, how you create a visibility across your supply chain, how you plan your demand, how you create better forecasting, how you reduce the amount of stock that you have in your warehouse, and other things. And obviously, on the business operations standpoint, some of the biggest projects that we're having is like moving the entire ERP and business application landscape to the cloud, as well as just basically, creating some workflows across different software packages. But as I said, today our focus is on smart factory. I showed you 200 or more services that we have. Typically, when we're talking about bringing together those services to form a solution, we start with like drawing an architecture, and it will look like something what you see here on your screen. So this architecture is something that was specifically created for manufacturing, and it depicts like an end-to-end AWS native implementation of like a modern manufacturing, digital manufacturing landscape, which includes the shop floor side at the end, the factory side where you collect the data, where you still, we expect that there will be some software that is that runs on premise, especially when it comes to some real-time automation, of course. Then to the right, you have cloud with lots of elements that are related to data analytics with business applications and things like that. And to the right, we also have some smart products such as robots or maybe the devices that you manufacture that also contribute to the data landscape of your digital manufacturing. Now, don't be afraid, because I know it looks like very complex, but typically this is not where you start, right? So one of the mottos that we as AWS have is think big, right, in terms of what you want to achieve. Start small. So start with just one use case, become confident with the outcomes that you can achieve from it, with the skills that you can acquire from that project, and then scale fast. Right? So that was pretty much a recipe for success. So, many of our customers would start with, just one workload, something simple. In case of manufacturing, one of the core things that we see recurring in many projects that we have, the first thing you need to do to be able to improve is know where you are. Just calculate some basic KPIs to have a baseline which you use to benchmark your improvement. So calculating overall equipment effectiveness, OEE, has been like a first project for many of our customers. And obviously, like most of you are doing it now. I see a lot of customers across Asia. Many of them are still using a very manual approach to OEE calculation, which happens like once in a while, maybe like once a day, once a week, and it doesn't really generate like real-time insights into what's happening with the line, and it also doesn't really keep all the context of data that was used to produce those insights, right? So implementing OEE could be a really good first project, and it could be quite fast and not very expensive, right? And one of the big ways how we as AWS can accelerate this first project is a service which is called AWS IoT Sitewise. It's a managed service, so you can again get access to it from our online web page, but it does have a lot of parts that will work on-prem in your factory together with the cloud, and will help you to design like a solution for overall equipment effectiveness and other KPIs monitoring, as well as kind of data analytics. So Sitewise packs ability to connect to the machines and extract the data from various protocols. So the ones that we support out of the box are OPC UA, Modbus, Ethernet IP. With this, partners like Tapway, they do have connectors to virtually all protocols that we've seen so far. So 300 or more protocols that Chihao mentioned. So there are ways how to connect to those protocols and ingest data into the cloud using Sitewise. Now in the cloud, what Sitewise provides you is the ability to easily model your equipment, because typically like you have certain hierarchy, right? So you have plant, you have lines, you have or cells, you have some equipment, workstations, and then each workstation will have its own internal structure. So you want to create the digital model of that equipment or of that line, connected with the telemetry that you're receiving from the from this machine, and then be able to operate the data that is kind of created in the context of your entire manufacturing. So Sitewise gives you those tools, and you can use them without the need of coding Java or .NET or whatever other language that you thought of. So it has like a simple user interface that could be used to do those configurations. And finally, it also has a built-in monitor for building near real-time visualizations of your KPIs of your equipment. But it's also very flexible as well. So if you are not comfortable with built-in tools, like you can use other things that you're familiar with, such as QuickSight or other BI tools that you're familiar with, or Grafana, for example, which is quite popular. And finally, Sitewise can also like operate entirely at the edge, right? So if you basically want to do some sort of visualizations and give them to the shop floor operators or plant managers, and you don't want to basically wait till the data is uploaded to the internet, Sidewise can operate at the edge. Okay, so let me probably give you a very quick demo. I have less than 10 minutes left, so it's going to be quick. And I'll start with demonstrating you the experience of Sidewise, and I'll start with the idea of this asset hierarchy. So every factory, every manufacturer would have certain hierarchical representation of their assets. So in here, I have this tree structure that basically describes our model manufacturer called Amazon Smart Manufacturer, with a bunch of divisions, with the sites, with plants, with lines, with work centers, sub work centers, the machine, and then finally at the bottom, at the leaves level, some individual assets or tags that being generated by the machines. So out of that hierarchy, we will generate digital representation of this hierarchy, and create the context of all the data that is streaming from the machines to the cloud. So let me quickly switch to my browser. Oops, apologies. I'll start here. So this is the AWS console. So you can get access to it for free. Please, feel free to sign up anytime. And through this console, you basically get access to all of those 200 plus services that I mentioned. So you can see them listed here, lots of them. Now, one of the services is AWS IoT Sidewise. So I will click on it. It's designed to be friendly with the people who are still pretty new to the cloud environment. So your learning curve may not be very steep, but obviously as you add new features, if you want to kind of add like expanded and extended functionality, then you will have to upskill. And this is why we frankly suggest that you start your journey with a certified partner like Tapway, who has a lot of IP and assets and experience of working with the customers. Now, in Sidewise, the work is organized across essentially 3 pillars. So edge, this is where you configure your gateways that are set up in your data center or server room, or just on the shop floor, depending on your IT security requirements. So this gateway will basically serve as a mediator between your industrial protocols and assets and your analytics platform in the cloud or at the edge. Now the second pillar within Sidewise is build. This is where you define your structure of the assets, you describe them. And so there are 2 concepts, models and assets. I don't want to go into the details of the difference, but at the end, you will basically end up with a description of your factory, of your lines, of your machines in the assets tab. So here, remember, I was talking about Amazon Smart Manufacturing hierarchy. So if I traverse this hierarchy, I go into division, I go into site, into plant, into line or set of lines, into line. Then I go deeper into workstations, work centers, and things like that. So let me just pull one of them at the lower level just to show you. So for example, here I go down to line 1, Crowder 1, and I do have some individual sensors that are attached to that asset. So let me choose pneumatic cylinder. On this pneumatic cylinder, I can obviously define some attributes to it. I can define measurements. So measurements is something that is coming from the device itself, let's say from OPC UA network or directly from some directly attached or secondary sensors. So in this case, I have air pressure, I have some additional states or temperature that I report. Some of those measurements are actually virtual that I created specifically for some machine learning required needs. Then I also define the transforms, and to define transforms, I use just simple math, arithmetic kind of operations. So you can do it without being a computer expert. Then metrics are the operations that are defined on the a certain time window, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 1 hour, 1 day. And this is where you would implement things like, for example, overall equipment effectiveness. And all those data features, data transfers metrics, they roll up across your hierarchy, right? So the plant manager or shift manager, they're not just interested in the they want to get a grasp of what's happening with their line. So they want to see the metrics for the line, not just for individual assets. So you can roll up all those metrics through this hierarchy. And finally, one more feature that I wanted to show you is the monitor. So this is where you can create the dashboards. So if I open this dashboard, so you can share this dashboard with like any people that you think need to have access to particular assets or particular dashboards. And creating those dashboards again is a very easy, intuitive type of thing. So you just use drag and drop like an Excel to form various visualizations that include things like current readings from the sensors or trend lines, or you can set alarms, you can basically annotate the data and things like that. So this monitor is really good for real-time visualizations. If you're interested in going into the data and like perform historical analysis of the data. And then we also offer BI tools that basically will help you to drill down into the data that was collected by Sitewise and let's say perform a root cause analysis. Let's say why is my OEE for stamping division is not great. So you can basically drill down to site, understand what site contributes to the poor OEE. What plant, what line, and then at the end, basically find the specific tag or specific machine that basically has issues that contribute to the poor OEE, and then use other tools to basically understand the anomaly. So if there is anomaly with a particular asset, or you want to predict remaining useful life and implement predictive maintenance. So look, the number of use cases and ways how you can analyze the data is truly limitless. So I think as we learn what your needs are, we can basically show some more tailored demos or propose better tailored solutions. So just feel free to ping Chihao, Tapway, as well as AWS, and we'll be happy to drill deeper. Okay, so let me go back to my slides and quick one about the pricing. So many of our customers, one of the first questions they're asking, okay, so how much it's going to cost me? So our pricing on AWS side is very transparent. And so you can go to the pages where we talk about the services like Sitewise, and they will have like a clear explanation how it's built. And most of our services are built on pay per use, right? So no commitment, no kind of license or anything. So you use it, you pay exactly for how much you used. Like tomorrow you decide to kind of stop it, you don't pay for it. We do have Excel calculators that are referenced on the site where you can model, your particular environment, how many sites, how many assets, how much data they generate, and it will give you a clear value of how much you're going to pay to AWS. Tapway is also very transparent in the way how they price things. So they do have some offerings which provide a fixed scope of fixed price that can basically help you to accelerate your journey. So finally, and apologies for going slightly over time, I really wanted to share some customer stories who used AWS tools to improve their manufacturing. And as I said, there's plenty of use cases, right? And typically, the customers should start with the topics that are most important for their business. So our customer called Genie, who produces lifting equipment, so they have lots of different divisions, but the place where we started our engagement was actually a paint shop. And that was driven by a problem that customers were not fully satisfied. Their customers were not fully satisfied with the quality of paint. And Genie wanted to investigate the the potential problems that they have in the paint shop, whether the technology was not fully kind of met, or basically find the optimal combination of the configurations for the paint shop that will produce the best results. And they used Sitewise to collect and analyze the data, and then basically use those learnings to continuously monitor the KPIs in the paint shop. So now they're actually expanding it to other divisions as well as 7 plants globally. Another really interesting customer, because of what they were able to achieve, it's called Georgia Pacific. It's essentially a paper company, so they manufacture paper. And generally we actually see a big pickup with all those pulp and paper companies here in Asia Pacific as well, in Australia. So for Georgia Pacific, the core use case that they started with, and again, you start small, right? You pin the problem that kind of is the most painful for you now. So for them, they wanted to improve the configuration of their machines. So they have those huge machines that can span like hundreds of meters, and so they produce paper. So those machines are basically pulling the this massive stream of paper sheet. And the problem is that if the speed and the tension of the paper is not properly adjusted, it can tear, right? And that basically yields some lost time, some downtime, as well as the cost. Right? So they collected a lot of data about when the tearing is happening, alongside with all the context of tension, speed, and all of other things that are happening at the shop floor, and they were able to predict optimal parameters that they need to keep for those machines to basically prevent tearing. And finally, one more customer that I wanted to share, because I think I saw on the registration list that we, or at least expect to have some automotive customers who are joining. So we have a big partnership with Volkswagen. And interestingly enough, so that partnership is not just something that AWS or Volkswagen can benefit from. So lots of assets that are produced in this partnership are made available for everyone else. So, for example, Sitewise that I demonstrated to you, a lot of features, they were initially requested in our partnership with in our work with the partnership for Volkswagen. So Volkswagen wants to drive 30% increase in efficiency and productivity in the next 5 years. And I really like the quote that we have here on this slide, which is from Dr. Martin Hoffman, who's a group CIO CIO for Volkswagen Group, and he says that, yeah, I mean, manufacturing. So the services, the technologies are important, right? But even more important is the culture, and you know that you need to jump on this trajectory, right? So you cannot really learn without doing things, right? And AWS is the right partner for them because of this culture piece. And this is where I wanted to kind of finish our presentation today and hopefully open up for some discussions, is around culture. Because technology that we provide, it just means how to organize the data, how to be like more data driven, how to understand, detect those issues, right? But it wouldn't work if you expect that it's a silver bullet, right? So this slide I actually created from a LinkedIn post from my colleague John Broadbent from Australia. He's like a very famous Industry 4.0 educator, and he has some really interesting videos where he shares, you know, his wisdom around, you know, what it means to transform, and some insights from the projects that he's done. So a couple of key points that really stick with me is Industry 4.0, it's a commitment. It's a long-time commitment. It's like, you know, healthy lifestyle. Like obviously, it's very much related with the continuous improvement philosophy that most of the manufacturers try to exercise, right? So it's a long-term journey. It's not something that can be done overnight, and it must be directed by the leadership. So the Industry 4.0 project cannot be just led by IT department. So it requires handshake from management, from IT and OT to be effective. And finally, I really like this one. It doesn't mean it needs to be a big bang, right? On the contrary, you know, I actually see much better results when there is a stream of small projects that build on top of each other without the customer to basically, you know, put in millions of dollars into a kind of first step. All right, so with this, let me finish my part and move to some questions. And again, apologies for taking a few more minutes. So hopefully, you know, you guys got some interesting insights from Chi-Hao's and mine speech. So Sarah, back to you.
All right. Thank you very much, Vasily, for a great demo and also your sharing session. I hope everyone can benefit a lot from what has been shared. So yeah, now we have come to the last session, which is question and answer sessions. So yeah, I open the floor to those who have any questions for our speakers. So now we do have 3 questions so far. So first would be, does IoT site-wise, does real-time data projection for all dashboard? For example, different department like production, management, HQ office to align all data for the whole company.
Okay.
All right. Okay, Vasily would like to answer.
Can I take this? Yes. Okay, so SiteWise is the tool for data capturing, data processing, and visualization, right? So it's gonna do whatever you guys will tell it to do, right? And as you said, it is a tool that will capture and like visualize real time, or I would say near real time. So there could be, you know, sub-second sort of delay because of the connectivity and data processing, but you know, we're talking about sub-seconds or seconds. We're not talking about like minutes or hours typically. And you can actually hook in any data source that you want, right? So it could be your machines, but we also have customers who also push the data from ERP or from MAS system to enrich the models. And yes, another thing that you say, like HQ office to align all data for the whole company, that's one of the scenarios that is popular. So we do have customers who have like big manufacturing network across the region. So let's say the plants in China, in Malaysia, in Thailand, in the Philippines, in Australia, in Singapore, and one of the things that they want to have is ability to have a visibility across the entire manufacturing, and then be able to drill down into what's happening in each individual plant. Also, another very productive idea in Industry 4.0 always has been in benchmarking. So benchmarking like one equipment with another equipment of the same type, right? So how are they performing? What's the productivity? What's the downtime? What's the difference? Or benchmarking one shift versus another shift. Like, why is your night shift actually performing worse than your day shift, right? Or like benchmarking plants or lines that have similar configurations. So that's exactly one of the scenarios that we are covering with Sidewise. With this, I think your question is actually very loaded. So would be actually super happy to have a deeper discussion in terms of what exactly you're trying to achieve and see how we can solve it with Sidewise. But also remember that Sidewise is just one component or one service that we have. There are so many other things that could be how to say added to this like Lego brick to make the spaceship that you actually need. Okay. So hopefully I answered your question. So Chihao, do you have anything to add?
Oh, you did it so well. I think I have nothing further to add. Yeah, maybe just in the context of what we do, you can also pump in data. For example, we just mentioned about vision track, about the defect rate and stuff like that. So it's not just connecting to machines. It can be connected to any data source that you need real-time data to be pumped to the cloud. So yeah, it also has, again, not just near real-time capability, but one of the key things happening in factories in faraway areas is a problem of connectivity. So having Sidewise at the edge helps to also buffer data in case of a downtime where you still don't lose data. So the fear of adopting cloud is always that, hey, you know what, my connectivity is bad, but for now, what we have developed is a solution that is resilient to downtime, and we are able to still push data once the internet is up again.
All right, great. Thank you very much, Chihao and Pasli. We'll move on to the next question, which is from Amira. So I have the questions. For many manufacturers in Malaysia who are still not even in the cloud now, can you share about what will be the first steps for them in order to move to IR 4.0?
Well, that's a big one. It's really a very loaded, a very broad question. I'm gonna start first, and maybe Wesley can add on. Of course, in terms of like data migration and all this, that is indirectly or even directly relevant to IR 4.0. That's something that probably Wesley can take. But in the context of what we do in Tapway, actually, whether cloud or not, it's really a big question on everyone's mind. But what you need to know is just about the benefits of the cloud, right? About how you can have reduced IT costs. If you have multiple factories, how you can have scalability, instead of having a centralized or even in data center in each of your factory, now you can centralize all this information. And of course, for business continuity in cases of things that are happening in your factory, cloud infrastructure that is built by AWS is one of the most resilient, most consistent, highest availability platform that you can get on. in terms of what we do, asset tracking and people tracking and vision track, and those are things that require cloud to be really efficient in terms of how we deploy and how we can scale for each of our customer. So yeah, I think the first steps really is to get in touch with us, and we will need to find out what your requirements are. So depending on your requirement, you may want to adopt a hybrid, or you still want to retain some in your on-prem, and that's fine, right? Again, like what Vasily say, it's not, you can't go from 0 to 100%. You have to go step by step of the way. And that is something that we can help to advise and consult and come up with plans to help you move slowly to the cloud if you are still 0% cloud currently. Vasily, you want to add on?
Yeah, I think that there is no one size fits all journey. So it really depends on your legacy, on your policies and all of that. But one thing that I wanted to mention, so you say you start your question with, we're still not even in the cloud now, which is a very common situation, right? So don't actually be afraid to make a leap with, yeah, an interesting analogy that I have in my head is telecommunications. In many countries that may not have or were kind of behind the most developed countries in terms of internet adoption, they missed some initial period of time when there was just the start of internet and web browsing and all of that, and they kind of jumped straight into an age of smartphones, and that actually gave them a lot of benefits. So when I come to some of these Southeast Asia countries, and I live in Singapore, and I used to visit Indonesia a lot, and it struck me that they actually, in many cases, they are far ahead in terms of digital in everyday life, even comparing to like the US. Or let's take payments. I think Southeast Asia with Malaysia, with Singapore, we're actually leading the pack in terms of access to all those digital financial services and digital payments. So sometimes there is a benefit that you can actually jump over like a big how to say it, epoch of technology development, and just straight start using some of the most modern approaches, and cloud could be one of them, because again, cloud just gives you ability to minimize the cost of deployments and cost of mistakes. So if you don't have anything in place, but let's say you already have your manufacturing facility, and you want to start analyzing the data, or you want to start doing some sort of OEE analysis, you can get this up and running in probably a couple of days or weeks with things like Sitewise. Doing the same thing using the on-premise equipment or some software from some big and reputable firms, it's always possible, right? But it's gonna take you to buy that hardware, get it delivered, and pay for the licenses, deploy those licenses and things like that. So lots of overhead that you couldn't avoid in the past, right? So 10 years ago, 15 years ago, even 5 years ago, if you wanted to do industrial analytics project, you couldn't avoid all of those kind of steps in making that capex investment. So now you can jump over it and get straight away to the result with tools that the AWS and our partners provide. So it's not always bad to kind of be slightly behind, because you can start adopting the most modern kind of technologies. I think when it comes to Industry Revolution 4.0, it's happening right now, right? And those tools are already sufficient.
All right. Okay, thank you, Basil and Chihao, for answering. Now, next on to our next question would be from Isaac. Hi, could someone share some of the edge gateway models that are preferred or dominantly being used in the industrial space?
That's a good question. So I'll take that. Yeah, so we have been using quite a couple of edge gateway models. It depends again on your use case. So for vision track, you need to have certain AI accelerator, sort of like GPU for your gaming purpose if you're a gamer. So yeah, we work with companies like Aeon with a double A. We work with companies like Advantech, which is quite popular in this part of the region. We have Axiom Tech. There's quite a few brands out there that provide AI accelerator servers. And in terms of, let's say, for IoT side wise, you actually don't need a lot of computing power, to be honest. Some people even started with Raspberry Pi kind of platform, which I wouldn't quite recommend. But yeah, we have actually a ongoing partnership with even Intel, where you can use just NUC, the NUC mini PC to run this workload. You can go a bit higher and work with those companies that basically I mentioned that provide, let's say, IP67 hardened servers if you're in a very tough environments, in a very hot or humid environment or outdoor. That's where you probably need a tough industrial gateways. So yeah, you have a whole range of models and hardware choices out there that we can help advise based on your workload, based on your requirement. And I think, Wesley, you want to talk a bit about Panorama, or yeah, something that AWS has as well in the edge gateway area.
Yeah. So I pasted the link to our so-called device catalog. So it lists the devices, the gateways, and other assets that are officially listed and certified on AWS. But generally, like if you're talking about data collection at the edge, frankly, any gateway that can run Linux and basically have sufficient ports to connect to your data sources should work. Right. Obviously, when it comes to computer vision, then as Chihao said, there could be more requirements in terms of GPU or VPU cores. And that's something that we have like a separate approach in terms of sizing, in terms of recommendations. But yeah, I mean, if you want to start, you can start like on a very low budget.
All right. Okay, thank you, Chiho and Vasily, once again for answering the question. Next, I think this is, fourth question would be, what is the breakdown percentage of clients of AWS site-wise in terms of employee size or annual revenue? The example given in your slides are huge M&As, wanting to know if it's as beneficial for the smaller guys.
And so actually, I love the question. One of the problems that I have right now is that I typically have visibility into the bigger guys, right? As you said, M&As. And while our like a lot of projects that are driven actually by the IT OT teams of the customers, and I'm not involved, and we haven't really run any sort of like marketing agreement that is required for publishing the slides or talking at the conferences like this, right? But I've seen quite small customers, like having just one plant or two plants who using Sitewise in Asia Pac, for example, in chemical industry and in food and beverage industry. And again, I think it's actually even better positioned for smaller companies because there is no capex, right? You can start using it straight away. probably your bills for a very long time will look like $5, $10, $15 per month. And only, when you start using it like at full scale at 300 assets, and it will start, to grow over $100,000. So it's very affordable. Also from from the feature perspective, I actually think that it's very friendly to the small businesses, small and medium businesses, because it's not like yeah, I mentioned spaceship, but Sidewise is not a spaceship. Like if you compare it with some of this like very professional and very respectable softwares and solutions from folks like Siemens, I think Sidewise is just much simpler, and there are pros and cons in that, right? So if you're a really big company that you probably want to have something very sophisticated, then you can go with Siemens with Wines. And by the way, Siemens is our big partner, so they use AWS infrastructure as well for a lot of things. And so I'm also happy to recommend you working with Siemens or other partners like Hitachi or let's say Deloitte or Cognizant, like lots of different partners that will have solutions. But I think it's always good to focus and have the partners who are very close to you, that are in the same country, in the same kind of city with you. That's why I'm really can highly recommend Tapway and Chihao. Has been like really effective in covering customers of all sizes, like starting from really big ones to SMBs as well. So again, just as a bottom line, I think Sitewise is very well positioned for small and medium customers. Like we haven't yet really captured enough SMB businesses for our kind of presentations, but now I actually realized that this could be an issue. So like if you guys are interested, like let's engage. Let's see how we can help you to deliver project on Sitewise with the help of Tapway. And actually, if you're interested, we can do some sort of PR and position you as a like leader of the industry, even though you could be small and medium size.
Yeah, I think I want to add on to that as well. It's a great question. Although the case studies are really on M&As, MNCs, and the big companies, but really Sitewise, it's well positioned for small companies. We can do a POC really fast, and we can connect to just 1 or 2 machines, really without incurring too much cost compared to other solutions out there where you have to pay a permanent license or a huge amount of money for the infra as well as the software. And this is just a lightweight sort of edge software as well as the cloud software that you can deploy. And pay-per-use, again, the power of pay-per-use is really in full swing here, and pay-per-use should be the model that is adopted by smaller companies to really save costs and be able to scale. And you pay more when you have more machines, right? So it is really in line with your sort of revenue based on your size of the company as well. So yeah, just a little bit of marketing plug. So we do have like a starter pack, and we also can do very quick POC. And the cost per machine per month is really low. It could be as low as just less than 100 ringgit, or even much less, depending on how real time you want your data be, and how much feature you want on your dashboard. So yeah, so that's basically reach out to us and let us know about your needs, and we can build a really quick POC for you.
All right, great. I think that's all the questions.
Yeah, I'm Russell.
Oh,
yeah, I've got this question. Looking at the perspective of the manufacturer, so for IoT site-wise, I think this question perhaps is for Vasily and also Chihao. So if they are interested to deploy this, at what scale of deployment would be best in terms of the productivity and benefits that can be reaped from site-wise? Should they deploy it partially first, or should they deploy full scale in the first move that they are implementing this new technology? Yeah. So what would be a better approach? Should it scale it step by step, or they will benefit more if, let's say, they go all in the first step they are moving towards this technology?
Let me take a first stab at this, Chihao, if you don't mind. So I think that there is no single recipe here. I saw. Let me talk about two examples. Like one customer, they had a very particular problem. So they knew that their issue is in quality. So they wanted to monitor a particular machine and basically understand the optimal configuration for the machine. It was for kind of producing some plastic products. So they were super focused on one machine and one scenario, which is predictive quality of that machine. Another customer, they didn't know where the problem is. So they wanted to first create a baseline of understanding OEE, understand it like across the shifts, across the lines. So they started with just a very simple end of line sort of sensor that helped to like move from like a very reactive way how to measure OEE into near real time, and like start pinning all the downtime in more proactive fashion, and basically start capturing the reason of that downtime. And then as the next step, they started like looking into micro stoppages, like analyzing like why let's say micro stoppages happening. For example, there's a problem of materials supply, so they started adopting like more dynamic approach to the materials scheduling, right? So depends on your situation. So if you want, let's jump on a quick call and discuss what's the current situation, and we can tie it back with some of the previous experiences that we have. So again, if you know the problem, then just start with tackling this problem. If you don't know the problem yet, start with baselining your performance. It's like I'm trying to reduce weight. So every day I need to stand on the scale to understand whether I gain weight or reduce. Chihao, what's your view on this?
Yeah, no, this goes back to the question of whether you want to start small or you want to go big bang, right? And my approach is always to start small, but with a full plan in mind. Like we first have to gather requirements about what your pain points are, what your struggles are operationally and management wise, and then we can basically craft out like certain pilot, right? So with maybe just a few machines, maybe those machines that have been giving you the most problem, let's say the highest defect rate or the most downtime, things like that. We can always zoom in on certain pain points and issue, do some small pilots, and try to get really KPIs and success criteria fulfilled with these pilot projects, and then we go big bang. So I think that's always the approach, having the full scope in mind and the full vision in mind, and do it step by step of the way.
Correct.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a better way to look at that. As long as we can actually reap the low-hanging fruits first and see the changes that it's improving, and what kind of benefits that or KPI that the customer, the manufacturer get to have. In this case, thank you, Chihao and Vasily.
Right. Thank you, Russell.
All right. Thank you, Russell, Vasily, and Chihao. So I think that is all the questions that we have. Yeah, we would like to thank you everyone who has raised the questions. With all the questions answered, I guess that is all for our question and answer sessions. So yeah, unfortunately, we have come to an end of our webinar session. Thank you everyone who has joined us today. And thank you very much, Chihao and Fastly, for sharing your insight and expertise. And yeah, before you leave, we hope you can spend about 5 minutes to scan the QR code here and fill in our feedback form for today's webinar to allow us to make further improvements in the future. So yeah, if you have any additional question or would like to connect directly with Tapway, you can email us at sales@gotapway.com or visit us at www.gotapway.com. Okay, thank you everyone for your time. Stay safe and have a wonderful day. See you next time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.